Emma Caldwell had grown up surrounded by wealth, luxury, and privilege. As the only daughter of billionaire businessman Richard Caldwell, she had never worried about money, consequences, or hearing the word no. Her life was filled with private schools, designer clothes, expensive vacations, and exclusive parties. People smiled at her, praised her, and obeyed her. Not because of who she was, but because of her father's name. Unfortunately, years of entitlement had convinced Emma that everyone around her existed to serve her. On a rainy Friday evening, Emma entered one of the city's most elegant restaurants with a group of influential friends. The restaurant was known for its outstanding service and welcoming atmosphere. Families celebrated birthdays there, couples enjoyed anniversaries, and business leaders held important meetings. Among the staff was a young waiter named Daniel Carter. Daniel wasn't working there because he loved serving tables. He was working because life had given him very few choices. His father had passed away years earlier, leaving Daniel responsible for his disabled mother and younger sister, who dreamed of becoming a doctor. Every extra shift meant another grocery bill paid, another prescription filled, or another tuition payment covered. Despite the hardships, Daniel carried himself with quiet dignity. He greeted every guest warmly, treated everyone with respect, and never allowed his personal struggles to affect his professionalism. That evening, he approached Emma's table with a friendly smile. "Good evening, welcome. My name is Daniel, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." Emma barely looked up. She continued scrolling through her phone before finally saying, "Make it quick." Daniel politely took everyone's order. A few minutes later, while bringing expensive drinks to the table, another customer accidentally bumped into him. Daniel managed to keep nearly every glass upright, but a few drops of sparkling water splashed onto Emma's designer handbag. It wasn't damaged, it wasn't stained. Only a few tiny drops landed on the leather, but Emma exploded with anger. She stood up so quickly that every nearby conversation stopped. "You idiot," she shouted. Daniel immediately apologized. "I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. It was an accident, let me clean it for you." Instead of accepting the apology, Emma slapped Daniel across the face. The sound echoed throughout the restaurant. Forks stopped moving, children looked up from their meals. The entire dining room fell into complete silence. Daniel slowly turned his head back toward her. His cheek burned from the slap, but what hurt even more was the humiliation. Several guests reached for their phones, recording what had happened. "Emma wasn't finished. You people should know your place." She sneered loudly. "Without customers like me, you'd have nothing." Daniel quietly lowered his eyes. "I'm truly sorry." The restaurant manager hurried over and tried to calm the situation. "Miss Caldwell, please." Emma interrupted him. "I want this waiter fired immediately." The manager hesitated. Daniel had worked there for 4 years without a single serious complaint. He was respected by every employee. Still, Emma's father owned companies that invested in businesses throughout the city. The manager feared losing investors. He reluctantly asked Daniel to step into the office. Daniel removed his apron without arguing. Some employees had tears in their eyes. Several customers quietly left, disgusted by what they had witnessed. Within hours, the video appeared online. Millions watched it. People criticized Emma's arrogance. Many praised Daniel for remaining calm. By the next morning, the video had spread across every major social media platform. News stations began discussing it. The restaurant received thousands of supportive messages for Daniel. Meanwhile, Richard Caldwell was attending an international business conference. Overseas, his assistant approached him with a tablet. "Sir, I think you need to see this." Richard watched the entire video without speaking. His expression became colder with every second. When the video ended, he watched it again and again. He wasn't angry because people were criticizing his family. He was heartbroken because his daughter had become someone he no longer recognized. Richard canceled every meeting. He boarded the first private flight home. Emma believed her father would defend her. After all, he had always protected her from consequences. She waited confidently inside the family mansion. When Richard walked through the front door, there was no hug, no smile. No greeting, only silence. He placed his phone on the table. "I've watched the video." Emma crossed her arms. "He embarrassed me." Richard looked directly into her eyes. "No, you embarrassed yourself." Emma laughed nervously. "Dad, he's just a waiter." Richard's voice became firm, and he is someone's son. He is someone's brother. He is a human being. Emma rolled her eyes. You don't understand. Richard interrupted. I understand perfectly. Then he said something no one expected. Pack a small suitcase. Emma frowned. What we're leaving where? You'll find out the next morning. Richard drove not in a luxury limousine, but in an ordinary pickup truck. After several hours, they arrived at a community shelter, where volunteers prepared meals for homeless families. Emma looked confused. Why are we here? Richard handed her a plain apron. Because today you'll be serving people. She refused. I'm not doing this. Richard calmly replied then, you can consider yourself cut off from every dollar you expect to inherit. Emma stared at him. She realized he wasn't joking. Reluctantly, she put on the apron. For the first time in her life, she stood behind a serving counter. She met elderly veteran single mothers, children without homes, people who had once owned businesses. Before illness destroyed everything, many smiled despite having almost nothing. One elderly woman thanked Emma simply for handing her a warm bowl of soup. Emma had never seen gratitude like that before. The following day, Richard took her somewhere else. A hospital children's ward. She spent hours reading stories to young cancer patients. One little girl smiled despite losing her hair from chemotherapy. Thank you for visiting me. The girl whispered. Emma fought back tears. The next week, Richard took away her luxury credit cards. Her expensive sports car disappeared. Her personal assistants were dismissed. For 3 months, Emma had to live on an average monthly salary. She cooked, cleaned, did laundry, used public transportation, worked alongside ordinary people. Every mistake carried consequences. Every purchase required careful thought. Slowly, something inside her changed. She began noticing people she had ignored her entire life. The janitor who arrived before sunrise, the delivery driver working through heavy rain, the cashier standing for 10-hour shifts, the waitress smiling despite aching feet. She finally understood that every job deserved respect. One evening, Richard handed Emma a simple envelope. Inside was the business card of the restaurant where everything had happened. It's time Emma drove there alone. Her heart pounded. Daniel was still working. When he saw her, he became understandably uncomfortable. Emma approached quietly. I'm not here to cause trouble. Daniel remained silent. She looked down. I owe you something then, in front of customers and staff. Emma apologized, not with excuses, not with explanations, with sincerity. I humiliated you. I treated you like you were less than me. I was wrong. I'm deeply sorry. The restaurant remained silent. Daniel studied her face. This time he saw no arrogance, only regret. He finally nodded. I accept your apology. Emma wasn't finished. She turned toward the manager. I also learned that Daniel almost lost his job because of me. The manager nodded quietly. Emma continued. My father and I would like to create an employee emergency fund for every member of your staff. The manager looked shocked. So no hard-working employee ever fears losing everything because of one customer's anger. Richard, who had quietly entered moments earlier, smiled proudly from the doorway. But his greatest surprise came a few weeks later. Without announcing it publicly, Richard invited Daniel to lunch. He asked about Daniel's dreams. Daniel admitted he had always wanted to study hospitality management, but couldn't afford college. Richard listened carefully, then he slid a folder across the table. Inside was a full university scholarship, not as charity, as an investment. You've demonstrated integrity under pressure. Richard said that's the kind of leader the world needs. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Months turned into years. Daniel completed his education with honors. He eventually became the general manager of one of Richard Caldwell's luxury hotels. Employees respected him because he never forgot where he came from. He greeted every cleaner, receptionist, cook, and waiter by name. He remembered birthdays. He created scholarship programs for employees' children. He introduced mental health support and financial assistance for struggling staff. His hotels became known not only for exceptional service, but also for treating employees like family. Emma transformed as well. Instead of spending her days shopping and attending glamorous events, she launched a foundation promoting dignity in service professions. She visited schools, businesses, and universities, speaking openly about her biggest mistake. She never hid the video. She used it as a reminder. that one moment of arrogance can define a life or become the beginning of transformation. During one speech, a student asked her, "What's the most expensive lesson you've ever learned?" Emma smiled softly. "The slap didn't cost me money. It cost me the illusion that wealth makes someone important. What makes a person valuable is how they treat those who can do nothing for them." The audience stood and applauded. Richard watched proudly from the back of the room. He realized that true success had never been measured by billions in the bank. It was measured by the values passed on to the next generation. The viral video that once represented shame eventually became a symbol of redemption. People shared it again years later, not because of the slap, but because they admired everything that happened afterward. The story reminded millions around the world that respect cannot be purchased. Kindness requires no fortune, and character reveals itself not in moments of comfort, but in moments of power, because every uniform hides a story. Every worker carries invisible battles. Every act of respect has the power to restore someone's dignity, and sometimes the greatest inheritance a parent can give isn't wealth, luxury, or influence. It's the courage to teach that no human being is ever beneath another.